Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona, and this is the TimeformUS Road to the Kentucky Derby series. Big weekend of racing coming up around the country. We've got 3 Derby preps taking place, all offering 100 qualifying points to the winner of each of these races. In this video, the focus is on New York as we take a look at the Grade 2 Wood Memorial, race 10 on an 11-race card at Aqueduct, and a really intriguing cast of 3-year-olds in this race. A field of 9 is entered, and we've got the winners of the local prep races for this, the Remsen, the Withers, and the Gotham. They're all in here, as is that intriguing shipper from Gulfstream, the undefeated Prevalence, who I know a lot of people have become a fan of on this Derby trail. As the morning line maker at Aqueduct, I struggled how to sort these horses out. I was really kind of between risk-taking and Prevalence as the favorite. I won't be shocked if Prevalence is the favorite, given how popular he's become based on those 2 impressive victories. I think he's a horse that you do have to have an opinion about in this race, but I won't be surprised if horses from the Gotham, like Crowded Trade and Weyburn, also take some money. They have their merits. And then there's that horse on the rail, Brooklyn Strong, the Remsen winner, who we haven't seen in a while, but he's a player in this race as well. They're the 5 major contenders, and we'll talk about all of them in depth. But before we get to them, let's take a look at the TimeformUS pace projector for this race. And this is one where the pace projector is predicting a fast pace. We do have some speed that's drawn towards the outside in this field, led by the number 7, Candyman Rocket, who has shown plenty of tactical speed in prior starts. He was stalking the pace in the Sam Davis when he won, and he's coming off a poor effort in the Tampa Bay Derby when they took him off the pace. So I'd imagine we'll get back to front-running tactics in here. If he's not on the lead, I think he'll be pressing the pace. Weyburn, the Gotham winner, the number 8, he also has some speed. And the horse on the outside, the number 9, Market Maven, not shown in front on the pace projector, but I would not be surprised if this long shot gets sent hard from the outside, because his 2 victories have come in gate-to-wire fashion at Parks. So I'd imagine they'll try to use those same tactics as well. And what do we get from the number 6, Prevalence, who has plenty of tactical speed coming out of victories around 1 turn? We'll see what he does and where he slots into the pace situation, making his first start around 2 turns in this Wood Memorial. And I think Prevalence is a good place to start as we talk about these contenders, because I said at the top, he's a horse that you do kind of have to have an opinion about as you go into this race. Now, he's garnered plenty of attention. I think in the last Kentucky Derby future wager, he was bet down to 21-1, a shorter price than all of the other horses that are offered in that wager that are in this Gotham field. So he's definitely a horse that some people are looking at as a potential Kentucky Derby candidate. I've got to say, I'm not quite convinced yet. He garnered a lot of attention based on that visually impressive maiden victory at Gulfstream Park 2 back. Let's take a look at his race last time, though, when he won that optional claimer as the 1-10 favorite. He did what he was supposed to do, I suppose, in this race, but Tyler Gaffalione really did have to get into him in upper stretch to get away from some significantly overmatched rivals. And while he was running through the wire in this race, he takes out the whip here, gives him a crack with the left hand as they come on to the finish here, and he's finishing up okay. But it's not like he comes out of this race with a big gallop out. He didn't give me the impression that he's one that's going to relish at a distance. And I get that same impression when I look at his pedigree. He's a son of Medaglia d'Oro, who can certainly get classic distance horses. But on the dam side, there's way more 1-turn and sprint pedigree. He's a half-brother to a horse named Libretta, who was pretty good for these connections, but was a confirmed sprinter. This is also that family of Godolphin runners that traces back to that Breeders' Cup Sprint winner, Desert Stormer. Horses like Better Luckier in that family. Really 1-turn to a mile kind of horses. So I'm just a little bit concerned about the 1.125 distance for Prevalence, and he's got to prove it to me that he's a true 1.125 or even 1.25 horse moving on to the Kentucky Derby. He also has to prove that he can run faster, because that 105 TimeformUS speed figure that he got last time, it's not like that's out of line with other speed figures I've seen for that race. Just wasn't the fastest allowance race in the world. So he's going to have to get faster to beat some horses in here, 4 of them in particular that we're about to talk about, that have already posted quicker speed figures than he has. Respect the connections. Just think at a short price, Prevalence has a lot of things working against him in this Wood Memorial. I'd be more inclined to take the other favorite in this race, the number 4, Risk Taking. And I think in a lot of ways, Risk Taking is the horse to beat. One of 2 Chad Brown runners in here who we'll talk about back-to-back, but this is definitely the more fancied one. He's picking up Irad Ortiz for this race, Chad's go-to guy, and he's trying to go for his 3rd victory in a row, all going this 1.125 distance at Aqueduct. Let's take a look at his victory in the Withers last time. Now, let's make no bones about it. he was not meeting his field as strong as the Wood Memorial in winning this Withers. I don't know where that second place finisher overtook went. He's been on the sideline since, and the others in this race just really aren't the same caliber of the field that he's meeting here. But I like the way that Risk Taking made a long, sustained run coming around the far turn, and you could see him finishing off this race in the final eighth. He is loving every bit of this mile and eighth distance. Changes over to his wrong lead, but even gains power in doing that as he moves across the wire here. He's got a stamina-laden pedigree, another son of Medaglia d'Oro, but one coming from a female family with plenty of horses that wanted to go route distances, and he feels like one that's already proven at this mile and eighth and might want even farther in the future as you move on to the Kentucky Derby, potentially even the Belmont Stakes down the line. Just a real grinding type, and I think a good fit for this Wood Memorial. The one question with Risk Taking is, can he continue progressing? Because his top TimeformUS speed figure of 107, it's not as high as some others in here, so he's got to take a step forward. I think he might have the ability to do it, but how short of a price do you want to take on a horse that likely does have to improve to win? I'm using him. I just couldn't quite make him my top pick here, given the potential lack of value. The other Chad Brown runner in this race is the number 2 Crowded Trade, and he's done nothing wrong in his career. Only has made 2 starts, and it's really not like Chad Brown to rush along a horse like this to make the Kentucky Derby. And I don't think he's rushing Crowded Trade. I think Crowded Trade has just showed so much ability in his first 2 career starts. He really can't help but run him in a final round Kentucky Derby prep. In the Gotham last time, he ran pretty well. His stablemate, Highly Motivated, who was the beaten favorite that day, he got most of the attention from a trip standpoint because he was a little bit slow out of the gate and was steadied early. But Crowded Trade, he also was not that quick out of the gate in the Gotham, broke about a length slowly, was bumped around at the start, and he made a bit of an early move on the backstretch to get him into a good stalking position. He got there at the top of the stretch. Eric Cancel set him down at the quarter pole, gave him a couple cracks of the whip coming past the quarter pole, and he got his head in front at the 8th pole, but just couldn't hold off Weyburn as they came onto the wire. The big question for Crowded Trade is, can he continue improving as they ask him to step up into this grade 2 test in just his 3rd career start? Also, is he one that's going to improve with added distance? His pedigree can kind of go either way. More Than Ready's a versatile sire. The Dam, she was a very versatile runner as well, who was successful going sprint and route distances. So we'll see what we get from Crowded Trade. I'm not sure that I love him for this spot, but he's one that might make some noise in this division down the line because he's shown so much ability up until this point. The horse that finished a nose ahead of Crowded Trade in the Gotham is the number 8 Weyburn, who was the 46-1 upsetter of that last race. And speaking of the Gotham, let's take a look at the stretch run of that race. I mentioned Crowded Trade making that early move on the outside to briefly take a lead, but there's Weyburn in between horses just inside of Crowded Trade in that yellow cap. And you see right here, he's hanging on his left lead. Trevor McCarthy is really getting into him, trying to pull him over to his correct right lead as they come through the stretch. And just past the 8th pole, he finally switches over to his right lead. And you see right there, he gets an extra burst of energy and he's able to come back on the inside and gamely defeat Crowded Trade by a desperate nose in this race. This was going a 1-turn mile, and Weyburn got a great trip in this race, right up on a pretty moderate pace, and he was able to get the jump on some horses who were a little compromised coming from farther back, like that aforementioned favorite, Highly Motivated. That said, Weyburn was coming off a layoff in that spot. While he had shown some promise at 2, he really was kind of just a frame of a horse. It hadn't really filled out yet. And lasting out in the Gotham, it seems like he's starting to put it all together. And he's always been a horse that just gives the impression the more distance, the better. The last time he ran in the Gotham, they were only going a 1-turn mile, but I think stretching out to the 2-turn mile and 1/8 is really going to hit him right between the eyes. He's a son of Pioneer of the Nile. The Dam side is just laden with stamina influences throughout his pedigree. His dams by AP Indy. There's Sunday Silence as the dam of his second dam. He's actually a half-brother to Nipigon, who was a horse who was a multiple 9-furlong winner racing up in Canada, a horse that even raced in some stakes races, so a quality runner. He's also a half to Yorkton, who was a versatile horse that could go up to a mile, but he was a son of Speightstown, and Weyburn, being a son of Pioneer of the Nile, is one that really does figure to get better with added ground. Jimmy Jerkins, he has good numbers off wins, and I know they've been a little bit hesitant to say that this horse is definitely pointing towards the Kentucky Derby. They want the horse to take them there, but I think Weyburn might be able to do that. He's a major player in this Wood Memorial, and I think he could get a little lost in the wagering, as I made him the 4th choice in the morning line, and I think he probably will go off somewhere around that 9-2. The one other horse in this race that I think you have to discuss is the number 1, Brooklyn Strong. And if Weyburn's a little bit under the radar, I think Brooklyn Strong might be the forgotten horse in this Wood Memorial, because we haven't seen him since early December when he won the Remsen at 7-1. And that was a totally legitimate performance. Let's take a look at the stretch run of that race. The second place finisher, 10 for 10, he had everything his own way, setting a pretty moderate pace. And Brooklyn Strong really had no right to run that horse down as the heavy favorite, but he just relentlessly keeps running after that gray horse on the inside, and he ranges up outside at the 8th pole here and is just able to forge paths as they come on to the finish. He won going this mile and an eighth distance all the way back in December of his 2-year-old season. So you know that he's got a ton of stamina to win a race like this now as a 3-year-old. The problem is the missed time and the layoff. This was not the original plan to make his 3-year-old debut in the Wood Memorial. He had some setbacks over the winter, couldn't really get into serious training until the end of February, and they put some stiff works into him to get ready for this race. But still, I feel like it's tough to play catch up in this Kentucky Derby trail moving forth to the Kentucky Derby. And the best thing for Brooklyn Strong might frankly be to lose this race and point to some other targets down the line, not the Kentucky Derby. But I don't want to underestimate him here, because based on that race last year in the Remsen, he does possess the ability to win this race. I just wonder if now is going to be the time for him to shine so early in this 3-year-old season, early in his 3-year-old campaign, I should say. So those are the 5 major contenders in this Wood Memorial. Let's throw out my picks for this race. And as I was saying, I'm going to go with the number 8 Weyburn on top, 9-2 on the morning line, hoping to get a price around there. I think of the horses coming out of the Withers and the Gotham, he'll be the best price of all of them. And I think he's going to get a decent trip in this race, because while he does have speed and that pace projector is predicting a fast pace, he's versatile enough to stalk outside. So I think it's going to work out for Weyburn in this race, and I like him to take that step forward, stretching out in distance. I'll use him over the number 4 Risk Taking, who, as I said, I think is the horse to beat, and also Brooklyn Strong, that horse that's flying under the radar. I'll use him underneath along with Crowded Trade. I'm against Prevalence in this race. He figures to be a short price. I'm going to let him beat me. I know a lot of people are a big fan of him, but he's just not for me in this Wood Memorial on Saturday at Aqueduct.